Are you looking for some delicious cookies for the holiday season? Maybe even one or two that are bite, point, and calorie friendly. Well, I've got the perfect solution for you here. These are my chocolate peanut butter thumbprints. So delicious and satisfying. But I'm not the only one offering you cookies today. This is part of my Dessertember cookie swap collab. Myself and about 15 other channels are all offering you cookies of all types, whether they're calorie conscious or not. So if you're interested in seeing how these are made and getting a bonus cookie on top of it, stick around because it's coming up next. Hello and welcome to my Dessertember cookie swap. Hold for applause. There it is. My name is Roy. I'm a home cook and amateur baker, and I'm here on this channel sharing recipes that have helped me to lose over 125 pounds, whether those recipes are mine or someone else's. Now today is one of mine, and you'll also be getting a bonus that isn't mine at the end. Now I came up with this collab for what I'm calling Dessertember because I'm doing sweet treats all month long, and I thought the perfect thing for Christmas is a good old-fashioned cookie swap. So there are about 15 or 16 other channels that are doing this, so go check them out down in the description box. You're going to have cookies galore for the holidays. Now, not all of them will be point friendly, bite friendly, or calorie friendly. I told people to do as they wanted. It was the holidays, a time to indulge a little bit. So if they wanted to do something that was on plan, that's fine. If they didn't, that was also fine. Now, I'm going to be doing one that is on plan, and then one that is not, but one that is super easy, but looks like it's really fancy. But we're going to start off with my chocolate peanut butter thumbprints. Now, thumbprint cookies have been around forever. They're usually like a shortbread cookie before you bake it, usually. Sometimes they do it after it's baked and just come out of the oven. I don't do it that way. I do it before it's baked, press my thumbprint into it, hence the name, and then you fill it with a jam or what have you. Well, I am doing one that is chocolate with a peanut butter filling. So let us go over the ingredients. I have here 1 cup of all-purpose flour. I have here 1/3 cup of powdered peanut butter. I'm using PB2, but you can use whatever one that you want. And that is obviously going to be for our filling. As is this 1/4 cup of sugar-free maple syrup. At the end, I'm going to combine those two to make our filling, and that will definitely save us on bites and points rather than using real peanut butter. I also have here 1/4 cup of cocoa powder. I'm using Dutch processed cocoa powder. That's why it might look a little darker than the one you're used to. Now, there is natural and there is Dutch processed cocoa. The difference is that in the Dutch processing, they take natural cocoa and they process it and take out some of the bitterness. So you get more of a chocolatey flavor than from natural, and it's also a little less bitter. And the color is also going to be a little deeper than if you use natural. You can honestly use either one. Either one will work in this. I have here 1/4 cup of light butter, and I'm using, I can't believe it's not Butter Light. I have here 1/2 cup of sugar replacement. I'm using, as I've mentioned before, in case anyone is interested, all-purpose in the raw, and it's from the people who do sugar in the raw, monk fruit in the raw. This one does not give us any aftertaste, which is why I prefer using that now over Swerve, which I used to use, just to get rid of that cooling after effect. I have here 1/4 cup of mashed banana. That was about half of a large banana, but you could replace that with pumpkin puree. I just prefer having that taste of the banana underneath the chocolate. Chocolate, peanut butter, and banana really go well together. But if you use pumpkin puree, you're not going to get a pumpkin-y flavor. It's just going to give its moisture to the cookies, but I like that extra hint of banana in there. I have here 1 egg, obviously at room temperature, because you should always combine any ingredients for baking at room temperature so that they will combine more easily. I have here 10 grams of sugar-free chocolate pudding mix. I prefer to weigh it, but if you need to measure it with a spoon, it'd be 1 slightly rounded tablespoon of instant sugar-free chocolate pudding mix. And that's just going to boost that chocolate flavor for us, make it more fudge-like. I have here a half teaspoon of vanilla extract and 1/4 teaspoon of table salt. Those are all the ingredients we need. You'll notice there is no leavener in it, no baking powder, baking soda, because we don't want these to puff up. We want them to hold on to their shape, hold on to our thumbprint, so we're not using any baking powder or baking soda in this. So let me shuffle a few things around and we will get started. So the first thing I'm going to do, I have a medium-sized bowl here. I'm just going to combine the flour, the cocoa powder, pudding mix, and salt, and just whisk that together. You want it to combine well enough that this is all one uniform color, not different shades of brown. And it doesn't take very long. There it is, we're already there. So I'm gonna set this off to the side and bring in my large bowl, and I'm also bringing in my scale. The reason I'm bringing in my scale is because I am going to weigh these cookies out. And if I bring my bowl in, set it on my scale and turn it on, it will be at 0 with the bowl on top, so I'll get an accurate read of how much dough is in here. So you can see it's 1,289 grams. I'm going by grams just because it's more accurate than going by ounces and hoping to get the fractions just right. But now that I have the weight on there, I don't need that right yet. I'm going to bring in my mixer, and we are going to add into this large bowl our butter and our mashed banana. And now I'm just going to blend this together so that it's a light creamy mixture that is pretty well combined. So that only took about 30 seconds or so. You just want them to combine together in there. Now I'm going to add in my egg, and I'm going to beat that in as well. Now, last but not least, add in the vanilla. Sugar replacement, as I've said before, sugar replacement is often put in with the liquid ingredients because it will disperse more evenly throughout the liquid ingredients than, say, if you added flour, which would clump and become something else. So I'm just going to combine that in, and that doesn't take too long. This all came together within like 2 minutes. So now I'm going to add in our flour and chocolate mixture and just beat that at low speed. But first, because I don't want a big plume of chocolate flour, I'm going to just swirl this around a little bit so it doesn't fly around as much. And then I'm going to beat it on low speed just until everything comes together. Okay, so that only took maybe 30 seconds to get that combined. Bring in my scale back. It's still got the weight on there, and we now have 476 grams. So I'm going to ask my little friend back there, and I'm not going to say her name in case any of you have one, and find out what 476 divided by 20 is. So it comes to about 23.8 grams, which is roughly 24 grams. So what I'm going to do is zero out my scale, and now I'm just going to remove enough to get a negative 23 or 24, so I know I'm in the right ballpark. Okay, 23 right there. I'm going to take the dough, roll it slightly in my hands, and set it on my baking sheet. So I'll clear out my scale again and just do the same thing over and over till I get 20 cookies. Now this is, as you can see, a very sticky dough. What I should have done and what I will put in the recipe is to chill it for about half an hour before you roll them out. Obviously, you can do it without doing that, but if you want to save a little bit on the mess, refrigerate it for 30 minutes before rolling them out. So let me go get cleaned up and we will move on. All right, so the next step is for our thumbprints. So I have some cold water here. I'm going to dip my thumb in and press it into the center of each of these little cookie dough balls. Now you don't have to go too deep, but you do want to get it down fairly low because they will puff up slightly as they bake. So you want it a little deeper than you think you're going to need it. So let me get the thumbprints in and we will move on. And if any of them are a little out of shape, you want them a little more rounded, just dip your fingers in and just shape them as you want. And just double check for the depth of your thumbprint, and those look pretty good. What I'm going to do is put them in a 350-degree oven for just 10 to 12 minutes. The edges will dry out a little bit first, and then even though the center is thin, it will retain some of that moistness, so you just want it as dry as you can. But I will show you what that looks like. So these are going in for 10 to 12 minutes, and I will rotate the pan halfway through just in case there are any hot spots. So I will be back in a moment and we'll start our filling. Okay, our filling for these cookies couldn't be easier. We're just going to take our powdered peanut butter. I'm just going to whisk that a little bit just to break up any clumps. They will break up as we add in the syrup, but I just want to make sure that I'm not going to get too many clumps that I need to work through. So then I'm going to add in the syrup and just whisk that together. Now you could use a spoon. You don't need a little whisk like I'm using. You could just use a spoon to whisk this together. You want it thoroughly combined, and it's going to seem a little wet at first, but as you continue to mix, it's going to firm up a little bit. Okay, so there you have it, our peanut butter filling, and that's also how I make peanut butter for sandwiches or anything that I need it for, is I combine it with a little bit of sugar-free syrup. Really tastes good, just like peanut butter. But this is going to sit as we let those bake. So I will be back. All right, so there we have our thumbprint cookies. You will know when they're done when you touch the center and you don't get any dampness. It feels firm and set. That's when you know they're done. Mine took about 10 minutes, but in case your oven runs a little cooler, you may need up to 12. But the bad thing is now we have to wait for them to cool. I'm going to let them cool for about 5 minutes on the pan, then just slide the parchment off onto the cooling rack underneath and let them cool completely before we put in our filling. Because if we put in our filling while they're still warm, it's just going to kind of melt and seep in. So we do have some waiting to do. But once these have cooled completely, I will be back to fill them and give you all those nutrition facts and a bonus recipe. Okay, so our cookies have cooled completely. Now we are going to fill them. I have a ½ teaspoon measure, and I'm going to take some of the peanut butter and scoop it out into each of our little thumbprints, and then spread it around a little bit so that it fills up our thumbprint. Now these are great right away, but they actually are better the next day. They kind of get a more fudgy feeling to them, but either way, they're delicious. So let me finish filling these and then we will go over those nutrition facts. Okay, so there we have them, my chocolate peanut butter thumbprints. Mine are a little messy. I'm having a little issue with my muscles today. If you're new here, I have myopathy and neuropathy, meaning my muscles and nerves don't always work correctly. And you can probably tell from my voice, I'm having a little problem with my jaw as well. But the show must go on. So they may not look the prettiest at the moment, but they are delicious. And each one of these cookies is just going to be one Better Balance Bite or Old Blue Point. I'm on the Healthy Better Balance plan, which is equivalent to the old WW Blue plan, which is, I guess, now the WW Points plan. Once you get to 3, it does that WW Healthy math, where it will go to 4 bites or points for 3 of them. Still not bad. Nice little fudgy peanut buttery flavor there. Now if you're following calories, each one of these would be 53 calories. And if you are following macros, the fat would be 1.5 grams. The carbs would be 13.2 grams. The fiber would be 1 gram. And the protein would be 2.2 grams for each one of these cookies. Now, I usually let them air dry so that the peanut butter solidifies a little bit more. And you will notice as the time goes on that they will darken a little bit. The peanut butter will darken a little bit. I think it either absorbs some of the chocolate or the air makes it a little darker, but it's still delicious. Once these have set up, I will put them in an airtight container, baggie, what have you, and I'll store them on the counter for 4 or 5 days. You can also store them in the fridge or freeze them. Just bring them to room temperature before you eat them, obviously, especially if they're frozen. But there you have it, my chocolate peanut butter thumbprints, which is the low bite, low point, low calorie cookie that I promised. But for a bonus, I'm going to give you one more cookie, and it's one that really does look fancy, but it's very easy to do. So I'm going to put these aside and I will be back. All right, so for my bonus cookie, I'm going to do what are called Palmiers, or you may have heard them called elephant ears or other things like that. They're very intricate looking. They look like they're very involved, but they're really not. Just 3 ingredients, and one of the ingredients is optional. I have here 1 sheet of puff pastry. These, I just got the store brand, and usually they come with 2 sheets. You could do both sheets if you wanted, but I am just doing 1, so this other one is going to go back for now because I don't need that. I have here 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. The cinnamon is optional. You don't have to use that. I just wanted a cinnamon sugar palmier, but you can do just sugar if you want. And I have 1/2 cup of sugar here. So what I'm going to do is just combine the cinnamon and the sugar. And this is actual sugar. This is not the sugar substitute. But as I said, this is not going to be bite point calorie friendly, but it is going to be elegant and tasty. So now what we're going to do is set our pastry aside, take a 1/4 cup of our cinnamon sugar mixture, and we're just going to sprinkle it over our counter, covering about the area where the puff pastry will cover. And then we're going to separate the pastry and fold it, and do it gently because this can tear if you're a little too rough with it. But you just open it up, and we're going to lay it down on our cinnamon sugar. Then we're going to take the rest of the cinnamon sugar, and we are going to sprinkle that on top so that we're getting coating of cinnamon sugar on both sides of our palmier. And you can smooth that around a little bit. Now what we're going to do is roll this out. Right now this is a 9 by 9 square. We want to roll this out to get it to about 12 by 12. And we're going to be embedding the cinnamon sugar into it as we roll. And you want to try to get it as even as you can. And let me just check the measurement here. Looks like it's about right. And it is. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to roll the pastry up, and we're going to stop halfway through. If you want, you can take a measurement of where the halfway point is and just mark it, maybe with a little indent from your ruler, so that you know where to stop. Now people design these in different ways. Some people fold them, some people roll them. You can roll one in one direction, the other in another direction, and make like a little S shape. But I'm just doing the standard little ear. So I'm gonna just roll this up and bring it in towards the center. And once we get to that center, I'm going to just pat it down a little bit and then roll the other side in toward it. Now this is gonna look very fancy, but obviously you can see very few ingredients because we're not making our own puff pastry here, which would be very involved. And it's gonna look super, super fancy. Okay, so I'm gonna push these ends in a little bit. So I'm gonna pick this up and put it onto a cutting board. And what we're going to do is set this in the fridge while we preheat our oven to 425 degrees. Just to let this firm up a little bit more. Our hands have been touching it, melting some of the butter in the dough. So we want to firm that back up before we put them into the oven. So this will go into the fridge just as long as it takes for the oven to come up to temperature, 425, and I will be back and we'll move on. So my oven is preheated to the correct temperature. This has chilled a little bit. Now what we're going to do is slice this into 1/4 inch slices. As I've said before, I know that up to the first knuckle of my pinky, that is about 1 inch, so I can use that as a guide. It's very helpful, so I don't have to get out a ruler or anything for measuring. So I'm going to cut it into about 1 inch and then cut that down. And then you're just going to take them and lay them out on the baking sheet. And they won't necessarily want to hold together at first. And you can shape them just to get them in the shape that you want and give them a little bit of space. So I'm going to slice these up and I'll be back. All right, so I got 30 palmiers out of this. You could get more, you could get less, depending on the size that you've rolled it out to and how wide you make them. And you don't have to make these sweet. You could do a savory palmier as well. You could even do some rolled up with cheese, all sorts of things you can do with it. But I am obviously doing sweet ones for our cookie swap. So let me get these in the oven. They're going to go in for about 8 minutes. Then I'm going to take my little spatula and flip them so that they can bake on the other side about another 5 minutes. But I'll show you the flipping part just so you can see what I'm talking about. I'll be right back. All right, so they've been in for about 8 minutes. And they're not browned yet, but the sugar is starting to caramelize and bubble in the oven. That's what you're looking for. Now we're just going to flip them to the other side carefully because they are still not fully set yet. Just be careful when you're doing it so that you don't burn yourself. All right, so they've all been flipped, and these are going to go back in for about 5 to 6 minutes until they are golden brown. So I'll be back to show you what they look like. So here we have them. I don't know if you can still hear. The sugar is very hot and melting and they're sizzling. And what I'm going to do is try to get the parchment paper off of the cookie sheet and then slide it off. I'm using my little spatula to do it so that I don't have to touch the hot pan. And then it'll be easier to slide them off onto the cooling rack. Now you just have to let these cool completely and they're ready to serve. So there you have it, a little bonus treat for you that is not bite, point, or calorie friendly, but is delicious. Now I'm not going to give you bites, points, or calories for these because we're not checking calories on this recipe. But I hope that you enjoyed this video and this collab. I hope that you will go check out the other channels that are doing this collab with me. They are all linked down in the description box. So please go check them all out. Get some great cookie recipes and show them some subscription love while you're at it. But that wraps up my part of my Dessertember cookie swap. You got 2 cookies for the price of one that's a little healthier than the other. So it's your choice which one you make. I will write up the instructions for the Palmier down in the description box. I'm not going to put them on my blog because my blog is simply for the recipes that are for weight loss. But I will write this up and put this in the description box if anyone wants that information. Also, I will link directly to my chocolate peanut butter thumbprints down there, as well as to the blog itself, to my Amazon storefront. If I've used anything you're interested in finding, it may be there. My Built Bar rewards, Fetch rewards, Skinny Syrups code, and my social media. If you want to follow me there, I have an Instagram and 2 Facebook groups down there. So go check out the description box for all sorts of information. And if you wouldn't mind doing the usual, like, subscribe, comment, and share, and hit the notification bell for the next time I upload any sort of video, such as this collab. And if you are new here, I hope that you will consider subscribing if you're looking for weight loss recipes. That is typically what I do here. And if you are new and do subscribe, comment down below whose channel you came from. I'd love to know who to thank for sending you over. So I'm gonna let these cool, but the chocolate peanut butter thumbprints should be cool enough to eat. So I may have a little snack or two. So until next time, bye.